Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Before starting my video, if you didn't subscribe my channel yet, please do, and do not forget turn on notifications because I'm sharing every week great contents for you. Alright guys, previous lesson we did our preparations. Now it is time to start coding. We are going to use both MVC project and API project. This is MVC section. Let me open my API project as well. Okay, let's open the solution and close everything, minimize all of them. Here we go. Alright, I'm gonna minimize the API right now. Previous lesson I did all changes. I'm going to explain what is happening here right now, how we create a request to the API using our MVC project. First of all, let's talk about our scenario. Previously, I'm not quite sure did I mention, we're going to use this invoice API system to calculate the customer's balance and to show the invoice for the customer. This is going to be good explanation for our existing system. And let me show you what I did in our structural section. We already create our structures, but I filled them all. Let's start with models. Okay, in DTO, so we have invoice API DTO and we have response folders. I may change the folder names to make much more clear explanation. So if you have a different folder names, please amend your system accordingly with me. Okay, so I created 3 different folder here and we have responses here. Okay, basically what are those responses? Let's start with this response DTOs. Open your API project and open your models. We have here same folders and we have responses here as well. Okay, because custom response DTO, we don't need anymore our constructions and static methods, so I just delete them all. Let me show you the difference between two. Our API custom response has, as you can see, constructors and static methods. We don't need them all. We just need the properties exactly same name, exactly same type comes from our API to match them easily. So I just copy and paste them our properties, that's all. No content DTO is no content, is empty anyway, so I'm just keeping same as it is. Alright, so the response section is done. Let's have a look our client DTO. I didn't fill them all, everything. I just filled them when I need it, so I'm just passing here right now. And let's continue the services. Let's keep it open. So I continue my services. Where is the API? This is the invoice API services. This is the client services. Okay, so I created a client service and I client service. Let's start with the I client service. I'm going to collapse everything and let's go step by step. First of all, we need to get all clients, so I created a method which is list client DTO, but I'm using asynchronous task method because we have to use asynchronous methods while sending requests. So you don't need to how can I say, I don't need to explain what it is. Just use async and await keywords, that's it. When we go to intermediate section of our roadmap, I will teach you what the asynchronous method is actually. Okay, let's continue. First of all, we need a HTTP client first, right? So I create my HTTP client in my constructor is to use a dependency injection, but while creating HTTP client, we need to define in our service. Now I'm going to my extension. This is my extensions, service extensions. Here we go. So I add a HTTP client and I give my services. So it means I'm going to use this HTTP client for this services, and the base address is going to be that one. So how did I take this base address? Let's go to API section. All right, let's go properties, launch setting JSON. As you can see, this is our project address, base address. So I just copy this address to my HTTP client base address, and now whenever I call an HTTP client in my client services, the base address is going to be that one, this one. All right, if you remember, when we created a services, we have to create a scope to define them in our dependency injection, and this HTTP client covering this add scope thing. So you don't need to add scope anymore for your services. Once you did add HTTP client, it's adds these services to your dependency injection container and add a base address basically. Okay, I assume you understand how it's working. Let's go back our services now. So I created an HTTP client object in my constructor, and I'm going to use it all the time. So we need to create a response. We need to create a request. So this is a request, and as a return we're receiving a response. So I'm using getAsync method, okay, and it is asking us a request URI. So URI is going to be basically, I already did a base address for this one, so all I need to add the rest of them. Let's go back our API project. So the controller is client, yeah. So I'm gonna send a request to get all clients. We defined the address here, as you can see. So base address, API and client. So I'm just taking the section API and client, and I type, actually it comes with the slash. I'm just gonna take API / client section and I paste them all here. Perfect. Now we send our request to the client, and as a response we had a HTTP response message. Now the second option, second step is we going to check, is it success status code or not? Because if you go back our API project, we have a middleware here, exception middleware. We can send exception for 100 or 500, or we can send 401, 403, 404 exception messages, as you can see. It means if we receive an error messages from our API, we're going to catch it here. So I just basically throw new exception, but I'm not gonna use that one. We're going to manage our exceptions later. Just leave as it is, not to get any error messages for now. Let's continue. So we need to deserialize this response. So we need to get our content in our HTTP response message, because we need list client DTO, but response is HTTP response message. So response content is located in content property in our response. So we're going to read as a string, so it is going to convert it a string result. Then we're going to deserialize it to actual object, because this is how we send from our API. This must be the equal what we send from our API provider. Let's get back our API. Let's get back our client controller. Let's go back, create action. Let me see. Okay, let's get back. Get all client list. It is located here. Okay, get all client list sent us custom response DTO list client DTO. So we need to catch exactly same response model comes from API. This is how we are using deserialized section, and we gave our string content. Now we have custom response DTO list client DTO content. Perfect. Now we can send our content data as a result. Let me see quickly if everything alright. Okay, perfect. So the return value is now, the data is list client DTO, and this is list client DTO. All done. I'm gonna do the test later. As you can see, we have used client DTO here, but we didn't create yet. Actually, you didn't create it, I did. Let me show it now. So let's get back our models. Let's click client DTO. As you can see, this is exactly same properties and contents what we have in our API provider models client DTO. Client DTO. This is exactly same properties. And also we have invoice DTO for client and invoice DTO for client. I created this one in invoice DTO folder. This is the exactly same what we are receiving from our API section. This is API. Let's have a look. Invoice DTO for client. As you can see, this is exactly same. Alright, let's minimize it. We go step by step, all models. Let's close these two. Now let's continue. I'm gonna close the service. I'm continue with client create DTO. Okay. As a return, we are returning client create DTO, so we need a DTO. Okay. So we need to basically go back our API DTO, client create DTO. This is our response model. I'm going to copy all of them, and I create a new client create DTO in my MVC project, and I paste them all here. So I have a client create DTO against to my API DTO. Okay. So this is going to be our return value, and let's create our request. I'm going to use HTTP client. This time I'm not gonna use basic get basic method, because we have a request. We need to serialize it first, and then we can send our application. But if you use post as JSON, you don't need to do anything. It's serialize it automatically for you guys. So that's why I'm using post as JSON async method. And the request address is, we already have a base address, if you remember. Let's type it here as well. Let's copy this one, paste it. Okay, let's go to API. Let's see our, where's my controllers? Okay, this is the controller. Let's see our create client DTO address. As you can see, the request is post. That's because we select post request, and this is the address API client, same as before. Okay, I just type here API client, and this is going to be post request, and the second parameter is asking us what would you like to send to your API, and I'm gonna send client create DTO request model. All right, now we have a response, and we checking if it's success status code. If it's not, we're going to manage it later. And if we have success one, the same as before, we just make it converted to string content and deserialize object, same as what we are receiving from our API. And we're returning our, let me have a look, the data is client create DTO, which is here. Alright, I assume you understand this one as well. Let's continue with the get client by ID async. Okay, let me have a look this one. Perfect. While I was creating this section, I find out a bug which is located in our API. I created a quick bug fix video related API provider playlist. You can go back and watch it as well, and I'm going to show you here how I fixed that bug. Okay, before continuing our video, let's fix that. That's one. If you remember, while we are updating our invoices, we change our getAll method in API. Let's go getAll clients. Okay, client list. Go to implementation. Alright, so we have, as you can see, using getAll is no tracking. Let's have a look at our getAll method itself. Go to implementation. SQueryable. As you can see, we are using SQueryable, but we removed as no tracking to track our invoices. And we add as no tracking manually to our list because we don't need to tracking while we're receiving our client list. But when I use to receive our update method, let's go back our update client. I'm using that getAll method again, and it is tracking. If it's tracking, our mapper update was like this one. If you check your project, it was like this one. I just changed the overload, and I'm using second overload of my mapping, and I add my existing item, so it's not creating a new instance of our client, and we not get any track problem while we're updating. Just update your mapper as it is. The problem will be solved. Okay, let's get back our MVC section. Everything same, guys. I just create a new file for our DTO. Just copy and paste from API section. I'm not gonna switch again. Do you understand what I did? And then I'm sending a getAsync method again, but this time I'm sending the address with ID parameter comes from our method. Let's get back our API and see the address. As you can see, get client by ID. The address is here, API client and ID. Okay, this is the address. We have response, we are managing the errors, and we deserialize the objects, and the return type is must be the client update DTO, but we are receiving client DTO. So I'm just mapping client from client DTO to client update DTO. Alright, and we are returning client update DTO. All good, guys. Perfect. Anything else? Update DTO? I assume all good. Let's continue with client update DTO services. Okay, it's much more easy, as you can see. So we have a response again. We're sending our request using put request, which is a put request. Client update DTO HTTP put, and the address is API client again. So this is put as JSON, and this is the address, and this is the request. So if we have a response failure, we're going to manage it here. I'm not serialize anything, or I'm not returning any data, because update is, let's have a look, guys. Update client is returning no content DTO. We have nothing here. We don't have anything here. So it means we don't need to receive anything related to update client. Okay, so I didn't manage the other section. Okay, same as remove client, we are using delete async this time. I'm using the address for remove section. Let's have a look at remove. The address is API client and ID parameter. I typed them exactly all we need to do send a parameter to delete it, and we're going to receive a response status code, and it's returning no content DTO as well. So we didn't manage anything related to remove client async. All right. Anything else should I need to know? Let me check. I just realized something. Can we send an error messages using no content DTO? It might be. Let's have a look quickly. Update client section. Oops, wrong click. Go to implementation. Okay, we can send a content even if it's a failed. Okay, we need to change this one as well. I'm going to update it. To do that, I'm just get these deserialized sections to the update DTO as well. Okay, so we have a content now. Okay, why I did this, let me explain you again. Even if we are returning no content, if we have a return value, how can I say, if we have a problem, if we have error while we validating our update client request, we might send no content DTO with fail 400 client not exist. Actually, I'm just thinking, if we send a 400 client not exist, is it going to be catched by our exceptions? No. It is going to send as a custom response DTO. So you can change this API to throwing an exception, and you can send custom response DTO as well. So I think it is the better method is changing this one to throw an exception, 400 exception, and it is going to catch by our middleware. Let me see the middleware. I think it is going to better solution. Where's my middleware? Okay, it is going to be catched by here, and we can amend this instead of mapper exception, client side exception, and it will be, I think, okay, I assume. Okay, let's do these amendments. I'm not gonna do this here. Let's go back our API project. Let's amend this project, our API project. I'm just now have a look quickly. Do we have any no content DTO with? Okay, we have a delayed client here, and we're returning no content DTO here. Okay, let's create an exception here. We are in API project, by the way, guys. Exceptions, we have mapper exceptions. I'm going to create any exceptions here. Client side exceptions. Client side exception. Okay. Let's inherit from exception. With the constructor, just send a message. Perfect. Let's save it. It's done. Now, if we receive a client is null, we're going to send a throw new client side exception. Let's implement our namespace as an error message. Client not exist. Perfect. So let's copy this error messages. So, oh, yep, we can throw this error messages here as well. And perfect. I'm just checking, should we use that one? Client side exception. Yeah, it's okay, it's gonna work anyway. Client not exist, client not exist. Do we have any of them? No. Let's get back our invoice section and see the invoice exceptions, services, invoice services, invoice services. Okay, invoice not exist. Invoice not exist. Anything else? Invoice not exist. Anything else? Invoice not exist. Invoice item methods. Here we go. We have another one here. Invoice not exist. Okay, for each. IT error messages. Okay, what is that? Error messages. University 2, University 3. List string messages new. Alright, invoice. I'm just trying to remember what I did here. Remove item ID in request, remove invoice. Yeah, we have a item list here. Error messages at. We have error message list here. As you can see, we have lots of error messages related to our. I'm gonna keep as it is for a second. This is a little bit different. Okay, do we have any? No. Let's have a look. If invoice null, invoice not exist. Let me have a look. Anything else? This is the success. Okay. Let me have a look quickly. Is there anything should we? Okay, all we need to, let's have a look. This is no content DTU and error messages with a multi-message. I'm just thinking, should I change it? Custom response DTU, no content DTU, failed, error messages. Can I send multi-error message? I'm just thinking. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna leave it for further lesson. When I find the solution, we can figure this out. Okay. First of all, I would like to try these changes. Let's run the application quickly. While you're working API and provider and consumer guys, sometimes you may do back and forth like this one. So finally, you will find a best solution. Okay, so let's have a look at our clients. Do we have anyone? Oh, yeah, I didn't stop it. I didn't run my Docker. Let's run the SQL container first. No, it's this one. Okay. Yeah. Let's continue. Okay, let's refresh. Okay, what happened? Let's reload the page. Okay, let's try that now. Execute. Here we go. We have a data which ID 3. Let's try to get. We couldn't do this here. Let's try to amend it using ID 5. Let's execute. As you can see, we received an exception. Let's continue. And client.exist comes with the custom response DTO. But this is 500 because we didn't add our client-side exception yet. But we are returning. Once we fix the status code, will be okay. So it is basically working. Let's close it. Now all we need to do, amend our middleware. Let's have a look. Everything is messed up. Let's minimize everything. Let's have a look our middleware. This is exception. I'm gonna add another exception here. So this is going to be 400 again, but this time client side exception. Okay, perfect. All right. You can change mapper exceptions to the client side exceptions by keep as it is. So define which one is what. You can keep them all together, or you can change the mapper exceptions to client side exceptions as well. Okay, let's close them. This section is done. Let's save everything. I'm not gonna test anything, the other changes. If you receive an error messages while you're testing, just drop comment below the video and I can have a look quickly. Let's continue. Basically, we're going to test anyway from MVC. Okay, I'm not gonna add anything below this section. As you can see, we are checking our error messages using its success status code section. Perfect. Now it's all good. Let me have a look quickly. Is there anything else should I check? Sending update TTO. Perfect. All good, guys. And I create here a private method. As you can see, we are using lots of same methods this section. So as a best practice, we need to put a private method. As you can see, I created a generic method which can be nullable, and I gave a name convert. I gave HTTP response message. How did I create? Let's have a look. As you can see, to wrap this section with a method, we need some ingredients. So the first one is response, which is HTTP response message response. Here we go. And we need an outcome. So outcome can be client TTO, client update TTO, whatever it is, but we have a custom response TTO. So I made it custom response TTO and a variable, and I implement my codes here, and I change the custom response TTO variable. So how are we gonna use that one? Let's start from top. Let's call our, okay, I'm gonna copy var content. This is an async method. I'm using await. Method name is convert, and this method asking us a HTTP response message, which is our response. I'm going to this response. We're going to have error message right now because we forget to add our variable. What kind of result would you like? Okay, and I would like to return list client DTO. Alright, the content is custom response DTO list client DTO. Perfect. Now we can delete it. So we have some space and code is much more readable right now. Okay, let's implement all of them. We need client create DTO here. Right, let's delete everything. Client create DTO. Alright, what is the problem here? We're not gonna use list, just client create DTO. Yeah, perfect. It's amended. Let's fix this one as well. We need a just client DTO. Where is my content? Yeah, we need client update DTO. We're returning client update DTO. What is the problem here? No, we are returning client DTO here, sorry. Yeah, we are returning client DTO and we're converting this client DTO to client update DTO. This is update section. All good. Alright, it's done. This is we don't need this method here. Perfect. Now it's much more readable. I think, yeah, perfect. All services is done. All models related to client is done. We add our HTTP client to the services. Now let's move on to controller section. Let's minimize everything. Let's save everything. Let's go through to, where's my controller? I became blind. Yeah, controller. So we created this folder before, and this is client controller. Okay, let's collapse definitions again. Basically, I add my services as using dependency injection to my constructor, and basically what I'm doing is response await client services get all client async. By the way, do not forget, I forget to tell you, do not forget to create your interface. This is my interface. Do not forget you create your interface, because we're using all the time interfaces and classes together. Okay, once you create your constructor and implement your services, all you need to do is calling your related method and returning response. The response is list client DTO, as you can see here. Perfect. And we have a create section. This is a create section. I assume you know how we're creating from our MVC section. I'm not explaining this anymore. And we have update section. We are, after we receive your result, we are returning to our listing methods using redirect action. And this is our update method. We are receiving our update the client, which is going to be updated using get client by ID async, and then we are posting the request again as a return. We are returning to our listing method, and we have remove client here as well. We are returning to the listing method as well. The controller side is very easy because we are doing all logic in our services as always, and we just managing them here. All right, so let's have a look our view models, views. So I'm gonna collapse everything again. Let's go step by step. Get all clients. Let's have a look. I just click add view as usual, how we did in our MVC project. I assume you remember. If you didn't, if you don't remember, you can go back our MVC project and watch this video from 0 to end to become a master of MVC, guys. Let's have a look. Go to view. I just copy and paste from my previews. Let me have a look. Category section, I guess, which we already created for our MVC project. I just changed the names and the data and the action and controller names. That's it. I didn't do much thing here. I just changed the names and adapt the table and text to my client section. I just add my model, I change the name, I change the items, and I update it to the action and controller names with the root IDs. That's it, what I did. Okay, and same as create category as well. Oh, sorry, not create category, it's my fault. Let's go back our controller. This is create client. Okay, let's go to view. I just copy from create category and it comes with one property. I just copy and paste and I adapt everything to my client section. So action is create client. You can add your area and controller as well to make much more accurate, how can I say, much more accurate codes related to your action, and change your properties from here, add your model here. That's it, guys. Perfect. let's have a look the update section. Go to view. Do not forget add your ID as an input, and everything same as what we did our create, and just do not forget to change the names of the button and the other things. Let's get back our client list. Where is my client list? Get all clients. Okay, and this is my delete action here as well, and we don't need any view for delete section. Okay, it seems everything is up to date and working, hopefully. Now we're going to start to testing. Let's close everything, minimize everything. By the way, I'm not gonna try and test any error things with the visuality. I'm gonna just test the error messages using debug. Let's open my client controller. Perfect. To run these two applications, we need to run these two as well. Okay, first of all, I'm running the API project. It doesn't matter which one is you first running, and I'm running the MVC project. Okay, this is the API, and this is the MVC project. Okay, first of all, I didn't do any authentication, anything else. We are at the beginning of our project right now, so I'm just going to type my let me make more bigger endpoint here. So it is going to be client and get all clients. This is my address for now. We're going to amend it later, do not worry about it. Let's enter. As you can see, we received our client list exactly comes from our API. So let's try to create a new client. Test company, user, test address. Let's type a number here. Let's create it. As you can see, we created our test company. Let's try to check from our API section. Client, try it out, execute. As you can see, we have a new company here. Perfect, it's working. Let's try to edit it. Okay, let's make it test company 2, user 2, test address 2, different number is random. Let's update it. As you can see, it is updated as well. So now I'm going to delete, but before that, let's check if it's working before deleting. Okay, let's have a look, guys. This ID3, let's execute. It's changed. Perfect. Let's minimize it. Now I'm going to delete the company. It's gone. Let's check it again. Execute. It's gone. Perfect. It's working. Is there anything should I tell you? Okay, let's try to some errors. How can I do? While I was creating a new client, I assume I couldn't get any error messages while I was creating here. But if I try to edit it, let me try to force to get error messages using here, but I'm not quite sure. We can test it from API side actually. Okay, okay, we can test it. Why I'm assuming we receiving number 4 ID instead of, let's say, number 7. I'm gonna put a breakpoint because we didn't manage our exceptions yet. So let's get back our solutions and services. Invoice API services, client service, client service. So we are going to send a request to the get client by ID. Let's put a breakpoint here. All right. Now I'm gonna send a request. Did we put something wrong place? Because it didn't work. Let me have a look. Get client by ID. This is the correct place. Let's edit it. Okay. Now it's working. Okay. When I try to make it 7, why it's not hitting? Okay, now we hit here. The ID is 7. Let's try to go through it F10 step by step. As you can see, what happened? This is API section. Okay, as you can see, this is API section. We receive an exception here. Let's continue to API side. Okay, now we are in MVC again. So the response is 400. Let me show you much more easily because the text is really small. This is the response, the content. How can I show you? It's really small text. Sorry about that, guys. The reason for us is, okay, this is bed request basically. Okay, I'm not make it really high, but the result is here. Status code 400. Reason phrase is bed request. It comes from our API project. Exactly how we throwing an exception, and it's manage our exception middleware from our API. This is exactly how we planned, and we resolved a result. If I continue, we're going to receive an ridiculous result because we didn't manage our exceptions yet. Alright, everything seems working, guys. Now I'm going to finish this lesson here. Let's save everything, minimize everything. Let's leave as it is. I assume you understand how it's working, and I'm going to publish the video next week, the next section, hopefully, if I can find some time to take video. I want you to continue with the invoice section on your own and try to create your own, how can I say, services and controllers just before the lesson, and I'm going to show every detail about invoice section for the next lesson. Take care of yourself. See you on the next lesson. Bye bye.